Okay, hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. It's nice to see a full room of faces. So tonight is our candidate information session. And so before we get started with our facilitator, I just wanted to provide a welcome and take care of some housekeeping. First of all, we want to do a territorial acknowledgement. So we want to acknowledge and recognize that we work, live, and play in the city of Port Alberni, which is situated on the unceded territories of the Sechot and Huipachesset First Nations. For housekeeping, if you need the washrooms tonight, there's two just outside these doors in the hallway. So get up, stretch your legs. We're going to be here for a couple hours. If you need to get up and walk around, that's fine. We are recording the session tonight, so you will see, you may see, that the recording will be on myself, the individuals behind me, and whatever presentations we have on. We won't have the audience in the frame, so no need to worry about your 15 minutes of fame tonight. And it will be posted. The reason for the recording is we will be posting it to the Let's Connect municipal election page for anyone who wants to view it later on, and the ACRD will also be posting it to their election page as well. I'll just go over a brief overview for what we can expect tonight. So before we start, I'll have a round of introductions behind me, as I'm sure you're wondering who all these lovely people are. And then I'll go ahead and introduce our facilitator, Allison. And then following Allison's presentation, which is the bulk of tonight's presentation, there will be a few slides from the ACRD, as well as School District 70, and then a few slides from myself before we finish up. After the slides, we will stop the recording, and there'll be an opportunity for a bit of an informal Q&A. We'll just hang back if you have any questions or need any clarification about the items discussed tonight. We can do that then. We also have nomination packages here for any of you who are looking to take one with you tonight. So with no further ado, I'll just maybe ask everyone to go around the room, and you'll see that we're using our microphones both so you can hear us and also so that the session is recorded.
Thank you, Sarah. So I'm Andrew McGifford. I'm the interim CAO for the City of Port Alberni.
I'm Allison Hebrook. I'm going to be the presenter tonight, if I can talk. So, thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Terry Fong. I'm the Secretary Treasurer for the Pacific Rim School District.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Heather Zenner, Manager of Administrative Services for the Regional District.
Good evening, everyone. Would also like to give thanks to the Sechot and Huipachesset First Nation for hosting us in their beautiful territory. My name is Cynthia Dick. I'm the General Manager of Administrative Services with the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District and the Chief Election Officer for the Regional District, as well as we conduct the elections for School District 70.
And then I'd just like to introduce you at the back of the room. We have Kim Matuk, who is the Deputy Chief Election Officer for the City of Port Alberni, and Tanis Feltrin, who is also the Deputy Chief Election Officer for the City of Port Alberni. Okay, and with that, we'll dig into tonight. There's a lot of information coming at you. We're together for a couple hours. Like I said, a lot of information. All of it will be posted so you can go through it. And of course, we'll always be available for follow-up questions. Tonight, our facilitator is Allison Habkirk. She's a former mayor, registered planner, and educator. Allison brings more than 30 years of experience in local government as an elected official, professional planner, and educator. Over the course of her career, she has worked as a staff planner, consultant, and trainer with more than 90 local governments and First Nations, as well as the province of British Columbia and numerous local government organizations. Allison also served 3 terms as both mayor and councillor for the District of Central Saanich, bringing valuable leadership and practical government experience to her work. Please join me in welcoming Allison.
Oh, well, that helps. I missed the first instruction. You get a sense of what my council meetings were like while I was mayor. So welcome, everybody. You know, I've got to tell you, I love coming to Port Alberni because for these sessions, because there's such a great turnout. Like, hands down, I've done, I don't know, 6, 8 of these over the last couple of months. This is the best turnout of the communities that I've been in. So, good on you. And in 2022, when I was here, same thing. The room was full. And, that's a sign of a really healthy democracy in your city. So good on you. And I hope you're all going to run. But if you're here just out of interest too, that's really great. I was just saying that I was in a community in the interior a couple of weeks ago when the Lions Club came out. I was so excited. I thought that was so cool. And they just came out of interest because here you're going to have an election. These elections really matter to you as residents and business people, right? And so the fact that people are interested, it's fantastic. So tonight really is about, in part kind of hoping to inspire you a bit to run for elected office, and then to give you a sense of like what the job's really like, because it's not all ribbon cuttings and happiness. It's a pretty tough job. So I'm going to tell you about some of the good things about my experience and maybe give you a heads up on kind of how much work it is and what a challenging job it is. Oh, do I have the clicker?
You don't. I am your clicker.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be really hard.
I see what you're flipping and I'm like,
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So I'm here. Oh, you're there too. I can see. This is another thing, I'm kind of a control person, right? So like I don't have the clicker and the picture is behind me. But you know what? I can see the screen over here. So that's great. So what are we going to cover tonight? So we're going to talk a little bit about the kind of the structure of local government in Port Alberni. Going to talk about the roles and responsibilities. So what is it that you're supposed to be doing as an elected official? A little bit of what the job really looks like. I always like to talk about financial stewardship and decision making, because that's what you are, you're a decision maker. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about ethics, conduct, really mostly how you stay out of trouble, because you can get into a heap of trouble as an elected official. And then Sarah's going to talk about running for office, and then Cynthia's going to talk about the ACRD, and then we're going to hear about the library too. So there is a lot of information ahead of you. Let me ask right off the bat, I'm missing a page. You've got it right there. If I think back to when I ran the first time, and I had been a staff person, I was a senior planner for the city of Nanaimo for a decade. I'd been around local government for a long time. But when I first ran for office, and I'll confess I was an totally accidental politician. It just was not something I had ever thought I would end up doing. I just kind of fell into it. But I had lots of questions once I got to the other side of the table. I thought I knew a lot, but in fact I didn't. So let me ask you, just so that I get a feel for the temperature of the room, anybody have any questions at the top of their mind, things that you'd like to talk about tonight? Things that you don't understand, that you're prepared to confess you don't understand? Okay, well, for sure, let me tell you, this is going to be way more interesting if you ask questions along the way, because otherwise I will just drone on. So I just encourage you. Oh, you look like, yeah, okay.
Well,
What question do you have?
basically, like some people here, I'm sure, I want to know if I run for something, what I'm getting myself into.
Yeah,
That's the bottom line here.
yeah. Well, that's a great question to have, because we'll talk about that, and I think you ought to know what you're getting yourself into, and yeah, we'll talk about that for sure. Anybody else want to be brave? Yes. Do you have to have experience? No, you have 30 years experience. Yes, well, not as about a decade as a politician, but 30 years in local government. What was the biggest surprise? When I got elected? Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'll just answer that question right now, but the biggest surprise was how different things looked when I sat on the other side of the table. It was easy for me to give professional advice, planning advice. I could do that. But the world looked really different when I sat at that table. And people treated me differently. And it was a real surprise. Again, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but I had this very kind of shocking experience the first time I was elected because, election night, we won. In fact, at my first election, the whole council was replaced. So like 7 of 7 were newly elected. It's a bit unusual, but it was a victory for sure. And, election night, it's a great party. Everybody's really happy. Everybody loves you. And the next day, you're the government. And they don't like you so much. That was really shocking. And it was really that quick. So anyways, yeah, I digress. We'll get to the realities of the job, but also, again, just really encourage you to just raise your hand, get some attention, and get my attention and ask questions. Yes?
Historically, we've had 3 assessors been like youth council. There's been an all-candidates meeting, and then there's often been a opportunity for council members to just kind of have a meet and greet. I'm curious if those are planned yet.
Okay. Oh, so that's why I don't see the other slides. You're so smart. See, I'm kind of a linear person, right? So we'll get to that. That's great. That's a great question. Anything else on anybody's mind that they want to make sure we address? So I really like to encourage you to ask yourself why you want to run for office. What is it that's motivating you? Because, it's a 4-year term, and you want to really understand why you want to do this. And, my experience across the province is, almost without exception, every person, every elected official I run into is motivated for good reasons, especially in small town BC, where they've lived in a community, they think they have something to offer, they want to contribute to their community. You might really believe that being an elected official is an honorable job, and that a strong democracy really needs good elected officials. I mean, you think they're running your city, right? You want really smart, clever people to be holding office. Maybe you want to lead change. All good reasons to run. But there are some reasons that you might not want to run. If you're mad as heck at the incumbents, I mean, that might be okay to be part of your motivation, but it's not going to sustain you for 4 years. And anyways, once the incumbents are gone and you're elected, it's now your responsibility to do the job well and do it better than the incumbents. If you just have one single project in your mind, you want to have a rec center renovated, you want to build a new trail, one thing, again, 4 years is a long time. You need to have a broader perspective than that. If you need the money, this is not a money-making job, let me tell you. The hourly wage is probably incredibly low. And with my apologies to this gentleman here, if you think you can run government like a business, you got to think twice about that, because if you're running the fire department like a business, you'd shut it down. Right. More like a business. If you want government to be efficient and effective, absolutely, right? But government's so much more complicated than a business is. You have a single motivation as a business operator, and that's to, make a living, to make a profit, to deliver a good service, and to make money doing it, right? Government's so much more complicated, and there are so many decisions that are value-based, right? How do you decide whether you're going to fund affordable housing or an upgrade to a sewer pump? That's a hard decision, right? So you have to really dig deep when you're making those value-based decisions. If you think the job is easy, it's not. It's a really challenging job, and you probably lose a lot of sleep over it, especially those tough value-based decisions. If you think it'll help your business or you're the people that are supporting you, probably not. You know, you'll be visible. You'll probably take a bit of a beating. So it's not all, as I said, ribbon cutting. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about kind of local government in the Valley. And this is just, you know, foundational information, just so that you kind of have some sense of where local government, why does it exist at all? So just first of all, if we can go to the next one, Sarah. Can we go to the next one? The reason local government exists in Canada at all is in the Canadian Constitution, all of the powers of the federal and provincial government are determined in Section 92. And in Section 92, it gives responsibility for local government to the provinces. So you notice that the federal government actually doesn't have a lot of involvement with local governments. I mean, they give money sometimes, but really it's the responsibility of the provinces. Each province in Canada creates a local government system and then gives authority, creates a system of local governments and then gives authority to the local governments. And so you often hear it's said that, you know, municipalities are creatures of the province, and they are. They're created by the province, and the province delegates authority. The province gives municipalities authority, but they also can take it away. And you probably are aware that there's been a lot of housing legislation passed in the last 4 or 5 years. That's the province exerting their power over local governments. So if the province doesn't like what local government is doing, then they meddle and tell the local governments what they want to do. I just want to illustrate that there are two principal acts that govern local government in BC. One is the Community Charter, and that is the legislation that gives municipalities and councils their power and authority and lays out the roles and the responsibilities. And then there's something called the Local Government Act, and it governs land use planning, elections, and regional districts. And, you know, there's history to why we have two pieces of legislation, and it goes back to the time of Gordon Campbell. They wanted to reform all the local government legislation. They got part way. They did the Community Charter and left the rest of the legislation in the Local Government Act. That's why we have two acts. Most provinces in Canada just have one. And then there's the School Act, which we'll speak about later. Can we go to the next one? So I always like to go to the legislation directly because it tells you what municipalities are supposed to be doing. So, I mean, I could just talk about this in general terms, but this is from the Community Charter, and it says municipalities are supposed to provide good government of the community, provide services, laws, and matters for community benefit, stewardship of the public assets, so all the roads, pipes in the ground, rec centers, all that kind of stuff. You're supposed to steward the public assets and then foster economic, social, and environmental well-being. And then if we just go to regional districts for a minute, and we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about them later, but regional districts are federations of municipalities and unincorporated areas. So they're where all of those local governments, unincorporated areas, and municipalities come together. And Cynthia's going to talk about this in more detail later, but they are service providers. They were created in large part to enable local governments and electoral areas to come together to provide joint services, to partner around services. They're not actually an order of government. They're a federation of local governments. They also have this very important financial role, and they provide for hospital funding, and they derive their authority from the municipalities and the electoral areas. So what do municipalities do? Really, it just boils down to two things. They provide services. So all the services, the water, your recreation services, the roads you drive in on, all those things. That's the big part of what municipalities do. And then they play this very important governance role of, they're an opportunity for the residents, the businesses to determine what it is you want your local government to do. And every local government in BC is different, and they provide different services and different amounts of services. So it really is the council is a representation of the people that live in the municipality. And then what do regional districts do? They provide services, again, often as partnered services. And they provide general government directly for electoral areas. So electoral areas elect a single representative to the CRD board. So for those unincorporated areas in BC, they're represented at the regional district, and they're an administrative agency. So I think maybe, Cynthia, I'll skip over the regional district stuff and just let you present the detail. Is that, you're going to cover what you covered last night? Yes. Yeah, okay. So that's what I think we'll do, because I think Cynthia did a better job of it than I do. So we can go to this one, maybe. So at the end of the day, the municipality is a part of a larger, broader governance system that includes a regional district, includes the province, and includes the Canadian Constitution. So we're one piece of that system. So anybody have any questions about that? I know dry as all get out, right? But it does, I mean, I hope it kind of helps you to understand, okay, well, there's actually a system to this, right? And there are a bunch of pieces that fit together. And I think maybe most importantly to think about how municipalities are creatures of the province, right? We basically do the work that the province wants us to do. Yeah. So let's talk about roles and responsibilities. So what's the role of the elected officials in our system? And I like to use this graphic, which I hope you can see. But the PowerPoint will be available afterwards if you want to go and look at this closely. There's two pieces to how a municipality works. And, there's the governance piece, and that's the role of and responsibility of the elected officials. And then there's the operations piece, and that is the world of the staff. So as a council, your focus is setting direction and the vision for the community. So they don't do that on their own. They do it with the people that live here. But, sorry? Oh, good. Setting that direction and setting the priorities for their term of office, that's kind of where the council ought to be. Their role is making decisions, setting policy, and representing the interests of the residents of the municipality. So the kind of responsibilities they're involved in approving plans and budgets, setting priorities and service levels, determining what services are you going to provide and how much of that service you're going to provide. That's the world of the elected official. And then monitoring performance and making sure that it's efficient, effective, that you're achieving your goals, you're achieving the priorities that you set. So the approach really is, strategic. And you need to be in touch with the residents. You need to be listening to the residents so that you're making decisions in the best interest of the people that live here. And of course, elected officials are accountable to the electorate. So in 4 years, You know, you'll get to know whether you did your job well or not, or if they're going to turf you. The staff role is completely different. So two pieces to the staff role. You know, you have a professional staff, highly qualified, highly skilled, highly educated staff. Their job is to give their best professional advice to the decision makers and then to implement the decisions of the decision makers. So give advice and then, you know, fearless advice, some of us like to say. They need to give their honest, best professional advice, and then they need to implement what council decides, whether they like it or not. And their focus is really on supporting the decision-making of the council and then operationalizing the decisions, you know, managing day-to-day services and programs, managing the staff and the resources, you know, working hard to achieve the priorities that the council has identified. And the approach of the staff is, you know, it's operational, professional expertise, problem solving, managing resources. And they're accountable to the chief administrative officer. So the staff underneath the CAO are all answered directly to the, well, directly or indirectly to the CAO. So you hear lots of times people say, well, elected officials, their role is that of governance. So, you know, what does that mean really? And this is, you know, how I conceptualize this. I see that elected officials, governance has 4 big buckets. So first of all, the top bucket, setting the strategic direction, identifying the priorities that the council and the municipality is going to work on. The second big bucket is allocating resources. So an annual budget, 5-year financial plan, 5-year capital plans, and the human resources, figuring out where you want the staff to be spending their time. So through the chief administrative officer to manage those human resources and to manage the financial resources. And then the council has this oversight role, oversight and reporting. So making sure that the CAO is doing the job. Sorry, Andrew. You know, their job is to evaluate the CAO's performance once a year. Are you achieving the goals that we set? Are you achieving the priorities that we set? Is the staff well managed? Are we efficient? Are we effective? So Andrew will go through a process like that every year and get feedback on his performance. And he will likewise do that with his staff as well. And then every year, you have to report out to your residents how you're doing. So the city of Port Alberni, come on in, if you dare. We don't bite. There are some seats here and over there if you want. You know, if you really don't want to stay, we'll let you leave.
We've made such a quiet entrance.
So every year the municipality publishes an annual report, and it outlines what's been achieved in the last year, and importantly, it includes financial statements. So if you haven't read the annual report, it's online, no problem, and I'm going to call up a couple of pages from it. But that'll give you a very good sense of what this council and the municipality has been working on over the last year. And you can go back for the last 4 years and see if you think that the council's been doing the right work. And then finally, the final 4th bucket is, you know, your responsibilities to manage risk. So that might be legal risk. It might be asset risk. So if you're not maintaining your assets, the pipes in the ground and the roads and stuff like that, there's risk associated with that. So it's your job to make sure that you are reducing any risk to the municipality and therefore to the taxpayers. So that's how I sort of see what governance is, and that is the world of the elected official. the role of city council. So city council is what's called the governing body of the municipality. And you know, municipalities, if you maybe have never thought of it this way, but municipalities are set up as corporations. So the Port Alberni is called the corporation of the city of Port Alberni. And the council is set up as a corporate board. So essentially, the council is the board of directors of a corporation. They are, in fact, the board of directors of the corporation. And, you know, we're not, the councils are not, like it's not a parliamentary system. You don't have a government and an opposition and you're two swords apart in the House of Commons. That's not how this is set up. It's set up as a corporate board, and it was set up quite intentionally more than 100 years ago in that way in British Columbia. So the council is the governing body. Role is to adopt policies and bylaws, make decisions. Key is their job is to appoint the CAO. So they are responsible for hiring the CAO and overseeing the work of the CAO. They adopt annual financial plans, 5-year financial plans. They adopt bylaws like the official community plan. Super important document in your community, lays out the long 20-year plan for the city. It's the roadmap for the next 20 years or so. Adopts things like zoning bylaws and a whole plethora of regulatory bylaws. And then liaising with the public. You know, the elected officials have this super important role in communicating with the public and listening to what the public wants. And then there's this external role of advocating to other levels of government. So advocating to the province or to the feds for something. Yes, yeah.
In the previous slide and this slide came up the subject of listening to the public and being the voice of the community or representing the community. So in your experience, especially in current day, I imagine there's a lot of change because of methods of getting the word out and back. So in your experience, what has been most effective in listening to the public, or not just waiting for feedback, but going out and searching for it?
Well, I think, there are kind of two pieces to this. One is just being out there and talking to people informally, right? And being on the soccer field or at a community organization or at the library and just, bumping into people and hearing what people have to say. So there's a very informal part. But then there's a more formal mode of engagement. And I think virtually every municipality in BC now, if they're passing, any significant document like an official community plan, there's a whole process of engagement, formalized engagement with an effort to engage people that aren't necessarily the loudest voices in the community. Because it's easy to hear the loud voices in the community. It's much harder to hear the quieter ones, right? So in the formal processes, there's generally a real commitment to trying to get at those quieter voices, but it's just super important to just be in the community, talking to people and, being proactive about doing that. So,
well, councillors don't maintain office or office hours like you would if you were in business or academia or what have you, or Congress. So in the absence of running into people, just that sort of a happenstance encounter. But I was interested in hearing about more targeted town council meetings or those.
Like a town hall meeting, yeah. Well, I had regular office hours certainly when I was mayor, I did. Some of the councillors did that. You generally have all kinds of appointments to organizations. So you might sit on various boards or be a liaison to a community group. So you've got that. And then again, as I say, the more structured engagement is going to be more formalized. So there'll be surveys, there'll be places to give input, So those will be structured and are quite common these days. And then, if you're dealing with a particular matter that you really think you need some input on, then you can just go out and get it yourself, right? Sorry, you also said like town hall meetings. So, the council can decide to hold town hall meetings or a town hall meeting on some specific topic, right? So, I mean, this is maybe a riskier thing to do now than it was 10 or 20 years ago. But, we held, come ask us anything sessions. Sometimes we had a facilitator, sometimes the mayor facilitated. Just an opportunity for the public to come forward. I know the mayor of Qualicum Beach, he holds an open door meeting, I think every week. People just come and talk to him. So that's completely up to you to do that if you want. Any other questions that are on your mind? So, yeah, at the end of the day, the city council is the governing body. They're the decision makers. They hold all of the authority, and nothing happens without the direction of the city council. And sometimes people don't believe that, but that is the reality. If council can function well and make decisions effectively, they have a lot of power to make things happen. If the council is, can't collaborate well together, if there's dysfunction around the council table, then often the council is quite weak and they struggle to exert their authority. So it's really important to have a group of people that can work together. It doesn't mean that they need to think the same thing or think the same way. In fact, I would argue that that's a bad thing, but they need to be able to work together and be able to make decisions together. We'll maybe skip the one about the ACRD board. Oh, there we go. If I just flip the page over, then I'm good. So I like to think about the role of the council as your job is to steward the municipality for your time in office. And what that means in my mind is, your residents have trusted the municipality to you. And your job is to look after it and to take care of it and hopefully make it better while you're in office. And, there'll be elected officials after you, and there were elected officials before you. But you just think that the city of Port Alberni has grown and developed over decades, right? And your job while you're in office, for the period of time you're in office, is to look after that city. And then when you're not in office, let it go and let somebody else take over. So I see it as a role of stewardship. So elected officials are decision makers. They're collective decision makers. So when you get elected, you are part of a council and you don't have any individual power. You only have authority and power as part of the group. So nothing that any individual says has any effect. It only has effect if a decision is made by the council as a collective, as a group. And that is sometimes a really hard transition for people to make. Can you just imagine, okay, say everybody in this room runs for office, right? That'd be just a fantastic competition for seats around the council table. You're going to go out there, you're going to campaign, you're going to tell everybody you're the best person for this job, that you are the best person to be on council. You're better than that person or better than that person. And you're functioning as an individual. And then you get elected, right? And then you're sitting around a table of 7 people. And you only have 1/7 of the power, right? You only have one vote. So you have to work with other people to get the majority to agree with you. That's what the collaboration is about, and that's what collective decision-making is about. And that transition from being an individual campaigner to being a member of a collective that's making decisions is a really hard transition to make. So I suggest to you that you think about that when you're running for office. Just how am I going to do that? And you know, the things that I said during the campaign about Joe, who's such a schmuck, you know, might linger afterwards. So you might want to really consider how you campaign. And I would just encourage you to be respectful, because you might be sitting next to the schmuck on the council afterwards, right? So, and you might have to work with them and find ways to find the common ground so that you can make collective decisions. So just, you know, at a council table, if one member says, I think we should do this, and the others don't agree with you, it has no effect. It only has effect if you pass a resolution or a bylaw saying, we'll do this, and council endorses it. So collective decision-making is the order of the day. So the role of the mayor. The mayor's job is to lead the collective, to lead the group. He or she is the presiding officer, and there's a little, I shouldn't say little, but there is one of the unique powers of the mayor is the mayor gets to make appointments to standing committees. And the second big piece of the mayor's job is to provide executive oversight. So the mayor is the voice of the council, so it has to represent the council, and is the conduit to the CAO. So often this is sort of model is described as an hourglass. So you have the council up here, and you have the staff down here, and you have the mayor and the CAO, or at the pinch point in the hourglass. So the mayor is the conduit to the CAO. Of course, the mayor has all kinds of public and ceremonial duties. That's the fun part of the job, mostly fun part of the job. The mayor is the council spokesperson. So even if the mayor doesn't like what the decision of council is, the mayor has to, you know, voice that decision. So I found this challenging at times because my council made decisions that I didn't agree with, but there I was, you know, the spokesperson of council, right? Telling the media, telling the public, this is what council decided. And the votes around the table are all equal votes. So the mayor doesn't have any special vote. They're all equal votes. You know, the strength of the mayor's vote is equal to the strength of all the councillors. Can we go to the next one? So the role of the councillor is just maybe a little more nebulous than the role of the mayor. Basically, they're a representative of the public and an advocate for the community. They are equal decision maker with the mayor in making policy decisions and passing bylaws, and all decisions are made by council as a whole. And then electoral area directors, I'm just going to leave that to Cynthia to talk about. Maybe I will just say this one thing about the regional district. Oh, what happened there?
Hold on a sec here. We're just having a little bit of trouble.
Oh, dear.
We're just going to take a little trip around.
The poor mayor.
And then we're going to go where we want to go. My mouse is very sticky, so you'll have to excuse the... And then, are you going to...
Yeah, I will just go to the next slide.
Okay.
So how many, sorry, I can't remember, how many representatives, 2 from Port Alberni to the Regional District Board? So there are two representatives from the City of Port Alberni to the Regional District Board. And, you know, there's a lot of kind of intellectual struggle about what the municipal directors do at the Regional District Board. Do they represent their municipality, or do they represent the interests of the Regional District? And you have a a big regional district, right? Covers a lot of area, and it's very diverse, right? Different needs. You have that whole West Coast thing happening up there, and then you got the valley. I think really the directors on the regional board have to do two things at the same time. They have to represent the interests of the municipality and also worry about the region as a whole at the same time. I think they have to wear both hats at the same time. Others will agree with me. Everything, on the spectrum from you're only there to represent the city, that's your job, you're elected by the residents of the city, you should only be worried about the city's interests. And then others that saying, no, you have to leave your city interests behind and you're really only to be thinking about the region. I think you have to do both things at the same time, but if you're elected, you're gonna have to figure that out. And it is a kind of an ongoing dilemma, I think, wearing two hats at the same time. So yeah, again, just to reinforce this notion that you govern as a collective and not as individuals. You all have individual votes, but the authority and decision-making power is only exercised as a collective, as a group. And again, just back to this separation of responsibilities between governance and operations. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the operations side of things, the staff role in all this. I think I've already mentioned that that the staff do two things in municipalities. They give their professional advice, and then they implement the decisions of council. So pretty straightforward, and I think that's really really well understood in most municipalities in BC. I'm going to talk about something called the One Employee Convention. So has anybody heard about this? Probably not. Oh, there you go. Fantastic. Wow. Not very often somebody raises their hand. So in our system of local government, this is in Canada, this is almost universally adopted, this model. And in BC, virtually every municipality, I'm not aware of any municipality that doesn't adopt this convention. And that is that the council has one employee, and the one employee is the CAO. They are responsible for hiring the CAO, and the CAO is responsible for hiring and overseeing all the rest of the employees. So the Director of Engineering doesn't report to council. The Director of Engineering reports to the CAO. Director of Planning doesn't report to council. They report to the CAO. So the council doesn't give direction to the staff below the CAO. Council's direction goes directly to the CAO, and then the CAO manages the rest of the staff and manages the execution of their work. And that's what's called the One Employee Convention. You'll hear some people call it the One Employee Rule. If you hear somebody like George Cuff, kind of a popular speaker in local government, he'll talk about the One Employee Rule. I don't think it's a rule, I think it's a convention. So that's what that's about. So you can see that the council has this real responsibility for overseeing the CAO because everything else rests on the work of the CAO. No pressure, Andrew. I mean, we're very lucky, though, in BC to have really highly skilled CAOs. There's really good training for CAOs. People in local government who end up being in CAOs have generally been in local government for a long time. And do we have this one? And they bring a lot of experience, and they often have some kind of professional background, engineering or some kind of technical background, planners or they're accountants, or so they bring their professional expertise to the job. So we're very lucky to have that, I think, in BC. The other thing we're very lucky to have is a nonpartisan public service. So you can expect the staff that are in place now to serve this council and the next council in exactly the same way. And you can count on them not courting any political favor or getting into any kind of political activity to do with the municipal council. So we have this real commitment in BC to a non-partisan public service. And every municipality in BC is a member of the Local Government Management Association. They have a code of ethics. And one of the commitments in the code of ethics is for public servants in local government to carry out their work in a nonpartisan way. So it's a really important component of our kind of way of doing business. And my editorial comment about this is it's worth protecting. Because if you have a partisan, if you start making political appointments in the staff, you create a lot of turmoil and instability in the organization. They should be hired for their professional expertise and their ability to do their jobs, and not for their political alliances. And this is very, very true in British Columbia and in most of Canada. This is not true in America. They have quite a different system. And this has allowed our local governments to be, I think, strong and stable in a way that I think that they would not be if we politicize the public service. So what does the job really look like? So first of all, any questions? You've heard me drone on. Anything?
You're doing such a great job with questions.
Okay, well, stop me if you have any thoughts. What does the job look like? So first of all, and I don't want to discourage you, but let me tell you, it's a big time commitment. You'll spend a lot of time doing this job. And the workload at times can feel pretty significant. You'll be visible in the public. So going grocery shopping takes way more time. People will want to talk to you. They'll recognize you. One of the weirdest experiences I had when I first became mayor, because it was particularly bad when I was mayor, because when you're a councillor, you're I was one of 6, and it wasn't so bad. But when I became mayor, I walked into, a party or something like that, and I heard somebody say, "The mayor's here." I thought, wow, okay, all right. That's a lot of pressure. You become visible. You'll have lots of relationships. People will want to talk to you. You have to spend time talking to people. People will want to court your favor. And you'll, meet other elected officials. So there's a lot of relationships in this job. And you'll want to really think about balancing your responsibilities as an elected official and your professional or family obligations. Because it is a big time commitment, you're going to have to figure out how you balance those things. And, everybody does that differently. But, if you run a retail store, I think of this because I have worked with one elected official who runs a retail store. And she really, she loves the people talking to her, but you can imagine how that would interfere with her business too, right? So you got to sort of find ways of managing those things. You might have media commitments. You certainly have commitments in public engagement, like we were talking about. There'll be opportunities to meet with the public and to be out there. There's a lot of interest these days on sort of stress management and building resilience in elected officials. I will say this is a much harder job than it was 20 or 30 years ago. There's a lot more pressure, especially around some of the tough decision-making. Land use decisions can be really tough. Things like rec centers. If there's a community battle about building a new rec center or a new sheet of ice, or, people are pickleball courts. God, pickleball courts, right? People are passionate about pickleball. My neighboring community in North Saanich, wow, they've been to court over their pickleball courts. Really? It's pickleball. So, there's a lot of interest in stress management and resilience for elected officials. So I think probably fair enough and probably a good thing.
Can you define the word huge a little bit?
Huge time commitment. Sarah, are you going to talk about how many meetings there are? Yeah, Sarah will help with that a little bit. But off the top of your head, how many pages is the average council meeting agenda?
I would say that the minimum council agenda for a regular meeting would be a minimum of 250 to 300 pages and could be upwards to 1,000 to 1,500 or more.
It's brutal. So, you know, my advice about this, two pieces of advice about this. One is, hopefully you're endowed with really good information processing skills, right? That you can process information, you know, really effectively and efficiently. But you need to figure out a system of triage. What is the most important information? What do I really need to read? And what can I rely on the staff advice for? So, you know, every decision, every report is going to come with a report from the staff, provide a history, an analysis of that problem, identification, analysis of the problem, and a recommendation. And there, you know, that might be enough to read. So you maybe have a 2, 3, 4, 5-page report of staff, and you don't need to read the supporting documents. And then there are other times when you might really want to get into the weeds and read all the supporting documents. But you need to have a system that will enable you to read that, because it's just, for most people, not humanly possible to read 200 pages of municipal stuff. You know, it's not, you're not going to the movies, right? And, you know, the best, most effective communities are where you've really built this strong trust and confidence in your staff so that you feel confident in taking their advice. That gets built after, you know, over a period of time after council's elected. But that's how you can be most effective. Yep.
So why are there all these pages of information if council's not expected to read it?
I'm not sure that they're not expected to read them, but, you know, on my council, this is how I like to explain it. I had, when I was mayor, I had a council member who, you know, was a wonderful council member, but maybe had a grade 7 education. His ability to process information he was really challenged. I mean, he was a good council member. He was there for the right reasons. He most of the time made good decisions, I think, but he couldn't process lots of information. So he could manage, I think, a few pages. On the same council, I had a guy that had a PhD, and he wanted every piece of detail, every piece of evidence, and he would read it all. He was a very good decision maker as well. So you kind of have to provide both. I would say in municipalities where there is a strong relationship between the staff and the council, you need less information. Where there's skepticism, a lack of confidence in the advice, you need more information. The other piece is the bigger the municipality, the less information you're going to get because you simply can't process. So City of Vancouver council agendas look very different than the District of Tofino agenda. So I think it depends on the place, it depends on the people, it depends on the relationship. So that's what the agendas look like in terms of time and commitment, but also there's all these other activities that you have to do too. So you might be liaison to community groups, you might sit on the regional district, you have their agendas to read. There might be committees within the municipality, so there's time spent on those things too. I mean, you, and Sarah can address this in more detail than I can, but you have one council meeting a week? Or a council and committee of the whole?
We have a regular council meeting on the second and fourth week of the month, and then a committee of the whole on the third week.
Right. So a meeting every week. It's generally much more than that. Any other questions about that kind of time commitment? Yep.
I'm more curious about the easier time commitment, so I don't know if maybe I should wait for Cynthia to start, because I feel like this is
Yeah. Are you feel comfortable answering that? Right now? No. When? Yeah. Let's let Cynthia do that. Okay. Yeah. You're responsible for infrastructure and capital planning, and by that, not the decision making around that. So particularly these days around asset management and funding for capital infrastructure. And this is a big topic in local government these days, because it's, Canada as a whole has been building infrastructure for 150 years and not necessarily maintaining it in the way we should be. So we're in a deficit, and it's big money. And I would think a city like Port Alberni that has a huge physical footprint has a lot of infrastructure. And this is, I'm assuming, I haven't talked to the staff about this, but I'm assuming this is a big topic. So managing the infrastructure and capital planning is an important part of your job. Every year you have to set a budget, you get to set the tax rates, you get to be Mr. or Mrs. Popular in the community, right? And really, that's figuring out what you can afford to do. What do you want to do, and how much is it going to cost? And there's no magic in this. Really, I used to say to my constituents that, there's not a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow here. This is all about the revenue comes in and the revenue goes out. And you got to figure out what services you want and what money you have to raise to provide those services. And then there's this whole issue of community services, social services that local government has been kind of forced into. 30 years ago, local government wasn't in the provision of affordable housing and shelters and that kind of stuff. But the province, the reality of this is the province has stepped back and it's ended up falling to local government. This has not been a traditional role of local government. But there's all of those services to deal with now that are generally fall into the category of wicked problems, not easy to solve, often really expensive, and you have to find the expertise to help you with that. So, it is a challenging job, but let me say this, it's a very rewarding job too. I mean, how many people do you know have been on council? Like, you get to be this person. Oh yeah, like I got to sit around a council table and make decisions that actually had real impact on the day-to-day life of the people in my community. It's a pretty cool thing to do in your life, to be honest. And I get a lot of satisfaction in sort of when I drive by something in my community and thinking, yeah, I was part of that. That was a good thing. That was great. Sometimes I drive by something and think, oh, yeah, I was a part of that, and it was not such a great thing. But, it can be a really, really rewarding job. And it's amazing to be in a group of people that actually can make a difference in a very direct way. You really actually can make things happen. If you can get it together as a council to work together, you can really make things happen. And that can be really incredibly exciting and really rewarding, even years later. As I said earlier, you're stewards of your municipality. So I just want to take you to, I know, this riveting topic of your financial statements. So this is from the last annual report, I think. I always, I do a few things when I go to a community. I read the last annual report, I read the official community plan, and I read the financial statements. And those three things, if you haven't done that, you ought to do that, because that gives you a very good picture of what's going on in the community. So I think, just let me make sure I've got the right page.
You do,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to blow it up, but my
Okay.
mouse is very sticky.
Because there should be, is there another? Can you go to the next one, Sarah?
And slowly but surely.
Because it looks like we just, no, okay, no, yeah, no, you're going to have to go back. And I'm sorry, there should be 2 pages here.
You do have 2 pages here, Allison, it's probably just on the other side, because I have this one, statement of operations.
Oh, this is the one, yeah, thank you, sorry. There it is. Yeah, so this is, can you just make it a little smaller, because you want to see what is, this shows the revenues and expenses. Revenues are at the top and the expenses at the bottom. So in 2025, the revenues for the city of Port Alberni, and I should just say, I am not a chartered accountant. Like, I'm not an accountant of any kind, and this always makes me really stressful, because it's stressed out, because God only knows if I get this wrong. But to me, it looks like the revenues in 2025 for Port Alberni were about $57 million, and the expenditures were about $54 million. And the difference is probably about grant revenue that came in and didn't get fully expended that year, probably gets expended in the next year. My point here is the job of council is to manage that $54 million, to figure out where that money goes, what it gets spent on. This is not, a little on the back of an envelope kind of job. You're responsible for this budget. And if you remember my little governance graphic with the 4 buckets, this is one of the 4 buckets. Your job is to manage the resources of the municipality. So a big chunk of that money, $36 million of it, is tax dollars. It's like your neighbors, businesses, it's their money. Your job is to look after that. And it's a significant responsibility. That's my point. And then the other thing that I just wanted to point out on the next page is the little circle at the bottom there. These are the tangible capital assets of Port Alberni, $186 million of capital assets. So when the community charter says your job is to manage the assets of the community, that's a big part of what you're managing. All of those capital assets in the municipality, making sure that you're looking after them and that you'll leave them in good shape when you leave office. So I just encourage you to take a look at the financial statements and think about, that part of the job, because everything you do is going to cost money and take resources, and you have to figure out, okay, well, where are we going to put the emphasis here in our term of office? Yeah, maybe we can go to the next one. We'll let that one, leave that one to Cynthia.
No, I don't think she has that one, so we should probably go over it.
So municipal services are funded largely, as I said, through taxation, and grant funds, and then the council decides where that money goes. And with the exception of some statutory reserves where you can't move money around, most of the service money you can move around from one service to another service. Regional districts behave quite differently. They have, I'm not sure that I have here how many services. The CRD provides, is it 102, how many? 50, 59 different services. And each service has a siloed budget. And only the people that participate in that service and receive the service contribute to that service. So they have these nice little silos of budgets, and you can't move money around. I happen to think that this is a really great system because it's very transparent. You know, only the people that receive the service pay for it, and all that money stays in that service. Municipalities have sort of in very broad sense, a big pot of money that they decide where the money goes to. And so the two organizations work quite differently in terms of managing their budgets. And the main source of revenue for regional districts is the service money. So if you're a part of a service, there's a levy on you every year. Any questions about that? So if you get elected to office, one of the first things, well, there are a couple of really brutal things that'll happen. Almost the first thing that ends up on your desk is the budget. So you're just freshly elected, and right away, okay, it's your decision to figure out the money stuff. And that'll go on for months. But it is, just because of the timing of our elections and the way our system works, it's one of the first things that happens. There will be, and you can count on this, really good training opportunity for you when you're first elected. So there'll be in-house orientation by your staff. The Local Government Leadership Academy holds workshops across BC for local government elected officials, 2.5, 3 days of training. You probably bring in some outside experts, probably have a lawyer come in, probably a governance person come in, and really help you kind of start up your learning. And then after orientation, budget, you will probably hold some kind of a session and set priorities for the terms of office. Might call it strategic planning, might call it priority setting, but the council will come together and you'll figure out what you want to achieve in your term of office. And that will kind of lay the roadmap for your 4 years. So it's an important step in the process, and done well, it's really effective. And then you can drive those priorities over the term of office. So if you haven't read the Corporate Strategic Plan for Port Alberni, I really encourage you to do that. And equally, the ACRD has a strategic plan as well. And that will give you a sense of kind of what that looks like and what the priorities have been over the last 4 years. Oh, this one's out of order. Let's just move on from that one. And then the annual report, which I mentioned before, really worth your time to take a good, close look at that. Interestingly, municipalities are required to produce annual reports, regional districts are not, so there's not one for the ACRD. So then I just want to talk a little bit about ethics, conduct, and legal responsibilities. This is the staying out of trouble section. You will be required to swear an oath at the beginning of your term. This is what's shown here is the standard oath provided by the province. Some are a little different depending upon the municipality. But at the end of the day, you'll be required to commit to working within the law, so you're not to be involved in illegal things, and to abide by the rules related to conflict of interest, and to be well behaved, to show integrity, to be accountable for decisions, to be respectful, to demonstrate leadership and collaboration and to perform the duties in accordance with the law. Amazing that you actually have to say that, but yes, you do. So this is part of the job. You'll have to swear this oath, and if you don't swear the oath, you're not elected. The province will remove you. So part of that is about this conduct stuff. And you might be aware that there are places in BC, municipalities in BC, where there's not been exemplary conduct. Kamloops comes to mind. They've had a lot of trouble this term of office. Sayward's had some trouble. So there's a group called the Working Group on Responsible Conduct, and it's a coalition of the Union of BC Municipalities, the Province of BC, and the Local Government Management Association. And they have produced some very good documents, guidance documents for elected officials on how to demonstrate responsible conduct. So this document is foundational principles, and as you can see here, integrity, accountability, respect, leadership, and collaboration. So everything is sort of starts here. But I just want to draw your attention to the fact that there's a bill halfway through the provincial legislature right now. It will be going back in the fall, Bill 17, and it proposes to change some of the existing rules around conduct. So now every municipality is going to have a code of conduct. Previously it was discretionary, and there will be required content in the code. So this will be another one of those things that as soon as you're elected, you will probably have to deal with this. We're hoping the legislation will be through in time by the election, and then the regulations will come out, and we'll see the detail of this. But you will have to adopt a code of conduct. A couple of things that are important about the proposed legislation is in cases where there are complaints, you'll have to hire an external investigator to review the complaints. Let me tell you, it's serious and it's expensive. So better to just behave well. There will be new penalties identified in the legislation. And previously, mayors and regional chairs had the ability to dismiss staff on their own, and that's going to be removed. And also, mayors in previous legislation in the current legislation are referred to as chief executive officer of the corporation, and they're no longer going to be called that because it was never defined and it was very confusing. It suggested that they had powers that they really didn't, and it has caused some trouble. So stay tuned. This is coming, and you'll have to deal with it almost as soon as you're elected. I'm just going to touch on a couple of little things that I think often people thinking about running for office, are a bit confused about or don't really understand, and that is that, this whole term in camera, what does that mean? The starting point in BC under the legislation we have is that all of your work is to be done in view of the public. Everything is to be done in open, and, why not? The residents are paying. You're their representatives, and they should be able to see what you're doing. So that's the starting point, and then there are a few exceptions. And they are just very generally, and you'll get good orientation about this, and you have all these fantastic corporate officers, people, this is their world. They know this world really well. They will help you through this. But there are a few exceptions. Some labor and personnel items, when you're hiring and firing people, you can go into a closed meeting for those purposes. Some legal, not every legal item, but some legal information, if you're in a court dispute and you're receiving advice from your solicitor, you can take that in a closed meeting. And some land issues, very specific land issues. So say the municipality is buying a piece of land for a park, and they're discussing how much they want to pay for it, that can be done in a closed meeting. And then after the matter is concluded, if it's appropriate, you can rise and report and tell the public what it is that you're doing. So for example, if you're acquiring a piece of property, once the property is secured and the price is secured and you own the land, then you can say, this meeting, we were discussing that particular item. I think it's always good practice to rise and report and tell the public what you were talking about in those closed meetings. Otherwise, they get suspicious. And, you know, there's all kinds of conspiracy stuff around that. If you're going to have a closed meeting, you have to notify the public that you're having a closed meeting, and you have to tell them why you're having a closed meeting. So you have to refer to the section of the Act that you're is the justification for the closed meeting. So that's what in camera means. And then conflict of interest, and I always like to say, I'm not a lawyer. You will get really good advice about this, but suffice to say that you, if you have a personal interest in a decision, you need to remove yourself, and remove yourself from the room. Remove yourself from discussing this with any members of council during the meeting or after the meeting, and you must declare that you have a conflict and leave. And this is a disqualifiable offense, so if you're found guilty of having a conflict of interest, you can be removed from office. There's only a couple of reasons that you can get removed. This is one of them. And while I was mayor, actually in my neighboring community, one of the councillors was involved in a property development and was participated in the decision making around it, and he was actually removed from office. So it's a pretty serious of experience, and you want to make sure you have good advice about it. And again, you've got good staff, and in some cases you might need some legal advice to determine if you actually have a conflict of interest. Yeah.
You got 7 members on the council table. You were yourself only at 6, but as a mayor?
That's a great question. In the case of a tie under our legislation, a decision is defeated. So if it's a tie, it's defeated, and the mayor has no special power to break a tie. So yeah, so if you end up with an even number, even if somebody is absent from a meeting,
And then it's considered no. Is what you're saying? You're saying it's defeated, so it's considered no.
it's a no. It's not going anywhere. It's not. So if you make a resolution to adopt a bylaw, and you have 6 people at the table and 3 say yes and 3 say no, it doesn't get passed. Yeah, it's a really good question, and lots of people are confused about that. They think the mayor can break the tie, but because the votes around the table are all equal votes, the mayor has no special power. Yeah. Yeah, good question. I should also mention that there's a bylaw called the meeting procedure bylaw, which is, I'm assuming, I didn't look at it, I assume it's on your website. And, you know, people think, oh yeah, a meeting procedure bylaw. It is a super important bylaw because it lays out the rules for how your meetings work, how the agenda is set, what the order of business is, all kinds of stuff. So this is a bylaw that you should look at, and certainly would be part of your orientation session, right? I refer to this as council's bylaw because council can, within the the bounds of the legislation, you can change the bylaw and make it to suit you in many ways. So for example, you set your meeting times in the procedure bylaw. So if the meeting times don't work for this council, if you want to have afternoon meetings or evening meetings, you determine that. So this is, in my view, very much a council bylaw. So it's worth a little read. It's kind of like watching paint dry, but it's a really important bylaw. So another thing for your reading list. I just have a couple more things to say. I just want to mention bias because the courts have determined that elected officials are expected to have an open mind, not an empty mind. And what that means is you need to, right up until the time you make a decision, you need to have an open mind. So during the campaign, you might want to think twice about being too declarative about your position on certain things. So if you said, I am never voting for that rezoning ever, you could be determined to have a closed mind. And the process, the decision-making process hasn't taken place yet. You haven't heard from the public, right? So you want to have an open mind. So you can have opinions. You can say, you know, well, I'm not thinking that's such a great idea, but I'm going to work through the process with my colleagues at the council table. I'm going to hear from the public and we'll make a decision. So you ought not to put yourself in a place where you have a bias against any particular decision, because it brings risk to the decision-making process. How to get stuff done. So just a couple of really important pieces about this. Everything that council wants to work on has to get onto a council agenda. Like, things happen at the council table, right? So stuff has to get onto the council agenda, and your procedure bylaw talks about how the agenda gets created. But you can also work with the mayor, with the CAO to get your things, and the strategic planning process to get your things kind of on the agenda. All decisions are made by resolution or bylaw, so nothing has effect if you don't pass a resolution or a bylaw. Resolutions are, you know, let's call them simple decisions made by the majority of council. So a simple majority, one-time decision, make things happen that way. And then there are bylaws. There are a lot of things that municipalities have to make decisions about that are required to be done by bylaw. And the difference between a resolution and a bylaw is the bylaw usually involves a series of steps, a series of readings. Sometimes there's time between the readings. It's a much more thoughtful, protracted process for more serious decisions. So again, your corporate officers and your CAO will help you know when something is appropriate for a bylaw and when a resolution will just be fine. Most decisions of council are made by a simple majority. Regional district is much more complicated. They have a different system of voting, weighted voting. And again, if you end up there, that'll all be explained to you. I mentioned the official community plan. This is a super, super powerful document, made even more powerful in the last couple of years by the province. It is the roadmap for the community for the next 20 years. It states goals, a vision for the community, goals, objectives, and policies that will help you achieve those goals and objectives. The OCP guides the decision-making of council. So if you're elected, you inherit the official community plan, and it will guide your decision-making. And in fact, the legislation says you cannot make decisions that are in conflict with the OCP. So you can change the OCP if you want to. You can do it. You can rewrite it. You can modify it. But you would have to do that if you wanted to make a decision that was actually in conflict with the OCP. This is a really, really important roadmap for you and for the community.
How did you deal with that when you were elected, and the one you were elected by the entire council?
Yep.
That to me means that if the citizens of the area felt that they needed to change.
Yep.
And so how did you guys deal with the OCP you were handed?
What do you think we did?
You changed it, obviously.
We rewrote it. Yeah, so we were elected, and it was the number one priority was to, in this case, it required a complete overhaul. And that was the major project in the first term of office. And I will say that we were resoundingly reelected at the next election. So we, you know, got it right. And it's the only time ever in my time as an elected official where the night we adopted the community plan, there was a standing ovation in the council chamber. It was unbelievable. But it was, you know, I mean, it was just the time was right. And the community just was headed down a road that they didn't want to go down, and they wanted change in a big way. So, yeah. It was good. It was super fun. I mean, that is a great story of how powerful this position can be if you can get it together to work together with your colleagues. I mean, it can be super powerful. We could have equally got it wrong, and it would have been a disaster. Yeah.
So guide me that I'm understanding what you said correctly. If council is handcuffed to follow the official community plan, and there's time constraints that may not allow you the luxury of 2 or 3 or 4 year time frame to engage the public, get it corrected or right, but you're handcuffed for this, something that may fall before you get it right. You're handcuffed?
No, you can change the official community plan. So let's just say you had a development that you wanted to approve, and the land use designation, the rezoning that you want to rezone it to is inconsistent with the official community plan. You can just amend the official community plan for that one piece of property. So you can do that. So you can make an amendment.
So normally, as I've seen, there's been public forums, there's been input over a period of time to allow that feedback from the public. So
Well, you do that, but just for,
condensing that?
No, you just do it for one piece of property, so it just wouldn't take so long. I mean, you're right, a complete overhaul of an official community plan takes years, that's for sure. But if you're just amending a particular piece of property, then, 6 months. So again, council has a lot of power. If they want to make that happen, they can make it happen. I saw a hand over here. Yep.
Will it really cost the regional council some money to develop that plan? And if you throw away the plan, how much money was wasted?
Yeah, these days to create a new official community plan is really expensive. But you have a fairly recent OCP, don't you?
It'll be going for adoption, consideration of adoption on Monday, 24th.
Oh my God. Yeah. So you have a fresh official community plan. Yeah.
What happened to the other one?
What happens to the previous plan?
Yeah.
Well,
Because I understand, because I did talk to Sherry about this some time ago in my show when I interviewed her. And so the development of the plan was already there, and I know that costs money. So
Yep.
if you're going to change the plan again, it's another cost.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. So you want to get it right the first time, for sure. But the thing is, I mean, I don't know anything about your official community plan other than just, browsing through it. But you don't necessarily have to do a complete overhaul. You can adjust whatever it is that's really bothering you. You hope that what you've got is really good. I mean, my circumstance when I was elected was extremely unusual. And we had, the circumstances were really unusual. That's just not typical at all. And you certainly wouldn't want that to happen because, this plan is a 20-year plan. You want it to be at least mostly right. So, yeah. Any other questions? Because I'm going to pass it over to my colleagues here. Yeah.
Earlier, you were talking about the great responsibility of the power of the council and your on decision making. And you also talked about staff being trained professionally and having education in areas of expertise about the jail. Not really so with council. Council's not educated to be council.
Yep.
Without all that knowledge and insight in making decisions.
Yep.
Based on, as you said, as best they can. This means a staff, So it almost has a bit of a redundancy. I don't know if it does. I think it's an important role. Here, the staff that are all trained in those things to make, to run a community and those sort of things. So it's almost, is there some of that in there? Would you say not really?
No, I don't think so, because, there's the professional advice, but, I really think of elected officials as having, it's almost community wisdom, right? They bring the non-professional component to the decision, which I happen to think is really important. And you will hear things as an elected official that the staff don't hear, they have all this technical advice, and I encourage you to listen to the advice and their recommendations. But there are times when the council will take another path, or this isn't a technical decision. This is a value decision. Your staff aren't wanting to weigh in on the values stuff. They can tell you how big the pipe is supposed to be in the ground, but whether or not you should be funding affordable housing or the pipe in the ground, that's your department, right? That's not a technical decision. They'll tell you what the risks of not funding that pipe is. That's important information, right? Or the risks of not funding that affordable housing or that play park, or for God help us, the pickleball court. But you have your ear to the ground in the community, and that's what you bring. And I happen to think that this is super important. Otherwise, you would just have staff, and you would be redundant. I happen to think that elected officials play a very important role at the end of the day. Any other? Sorry. Sorry?
I've heard somebody say this at one time, this is what I said to myself, I've never made a mistake in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
I believe that than what they said once, but I've made lots of decisions that turned out to be mistakes.
Yeah.
Purposefully made mistakes.
Yeah.
And so it's like in the decision making that takes place in the community,
Yeah.
I make a mistake at home and it affects my family and myself and
Yeah.
my neighborhood. You make this, and you can say, well, I didn't intentionally do so. So the more information, so responsibility is huge.
Yes.
Because you've got to gather as much information you can to use as best as you can.
Yeah.
Because if it does turn out to be a mistake, the community pays for it for
Yeah.
generations.
Yeah.
So it's a huge,
Yeah.
so it's almost like saying,
Yeah.
it's not, so how do you take that role on and take it and not having the training in these areas?
Yeah.
And really listen and make those kind of
Yeah.
decisions. It's huge because I think that, anything that I would be involved in, it's nice for 7 people because then hopefully from that, you are gathering most information.
Yeah.
from all those people.
Yeah.
But still, you do, I think they just say, well, should
Yeah.
kind of second chance.
Yeah. I think, there was a time when you expected city councils, to be the elders of the community, right? To be the people that have been around for a long time and, have a lot of knowledge and a lot of kind of connections in the community. And I don't know, I think if we return to thinking like that, we might be better off, right? It doesn't mean you have to be old people. Like young people can be wise too, but really people that really have a deep caring about the community. I'm going to pass it over. I know I took probably more of my time than I should have. And I eliminated slides.
So good evening, everyone. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Cynthia Dick. I'm the General Manager of Administrative Services with the Alberni-Quayquat Regional District and the Chief Election Officer, and I'll be sharing some information specifically as it relates to the electoral area directors and school district trustees elections. So a bit about the regional district. We were established in 1966 by the province of BC through letters patent. And the letters patent defines regional district corporate status, boundaries, and public powers. As mentioned earlier, the legislative authority does come through the Community Charter, Local Government Act, as well as the School District for the School Act. And in accordance with the School Act, the regional district or the municipality can conduct elections on behalf of the school district. So we will be conducting both. We provide services to 13-member jurisdictions, as outlined in the slide over there. So we will be conducting the elections for the 6 electoral areas, including A, Bamfield, B, Beaufort, C, Long Beach, D, Sprout Lake, E, Beaver Creek, and F, Cherry Creek. We've also outlined which municipalities participate in the Regional District Board, and that is the District of Ucluelet, District of Tofino, and the City of Port Alberni. We also have the 4 Treaty First Nations who will participate in the Regional District, and that includes Huu-ay-aht, Toquat, Uchucklesett, and Ushuaxtla. So the next slide provides information of which positions are elected and which positions are appointed. So we have 1 director for each of the 6 electoral areas, and these directors are elected in the upcoming election. We have 1 director each for the District of Ucluelet and District of Tofino, which are appointed by their respective councils following the elections. And then we have 2 directors for the City of Port Alberni, which are, again, appointed by their councils. And this is based on their population, so they have the 2 seats. And then the municipal and, and the Treaty First Nations also appoint through their governing bodies. The school board is governed by the School Act, and the election for the school district has 2 geographic areas. We have the first area, which is the Alberni Valley and Bamfield, and this includes the City of Port Alberni, electoral area A, B, D, E, and F, as outlined on the slide. And then we also have the West Coast, which includes the District of Tofino, District of Ucluelet, and electoral area C, Long Beach. So in total, the election will have the 7 trustee positions. A bit of an overview of the time commitment required for the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District electoral area directors. So we do have 2 board meetings per month, with the exception of 1 meeting held in July, August, and December. And we recently updated our procedures bylaw, which can be found on our website. We had on average, a year, 21 board meetings, 4 committee of the whole meetings, 4 electoral area directors meetings, and 4 Alberni Valley and Bamfield Services Committee meetings. Going back to agenda packages, I would say on average it ranges from 200 to 400 pages. But as mentioned earlier, our procedures bylaw outlines the start of the meetings, which is Wednesdays at 1:30. And then the procedures bylaw also outlines that the duration of the meetings will be no longer than 3.5 hours, unless, of course, the board makes a resolution to extend the time. We also have a number of internal and external committees that the directors are appointed to, so the time commitment really depends on which appointments that the board member does become involved in. There's also a number of public appearances, invitation to community events, annual conferences, and public hearings that should be taken into consideration as well. For the School District Board of Education, the monthly meetings include 1 public board meeting and 1 in-camera board meeting, as well as 2 standing committee meetings. There may be other special board meetings or committee meetings scheduled. There are also monthly school visits, conference opportunities. Some are intended for all trustees and some for specific trustees. There are other internal and external committee appointments in addition to public appearances, advocacy work, and invitations to community events. And we do have a school district representative here who can answer any specific questions if you might have following the presentation. Our nomination packages and nomination period. So our nomination packages for both the regional district and school district are now available and can be picked up at the regional district office just behind here. We also are providing through email, so you can email us at elections@acrd.bc.ca. We did outline the nomination period. I won't spend a lot of time because I know Sarah is going over some of the key dates as well, and also want to refer you to our website as that information is kept up to date. So we outline the key dates and any processes related to the election. Also, the nomination period is September 1st to September 11th, and will be discussed more later. One thing that we did include was the campaign period, as it begins the morning of September 19th and ends on October 17th. Elections BC does set the expense limits that apply during the campaign period, which are outlined again on the slide. And more information specifically regarding the rates can be found through the Elections BC website. So voting opportunities. So we do have advanced voting on October 7th, and we will, as we do conduct the elections for SD70, and we will be participating in the Ucluelet and Tofino advanced voting dates, and we will have advanced voting at the ACRD office on October 7th and 14th. We also have general voting day on October 17th, and we'll have multiple voting locations, but it will be really determined on which electoral areas that we have an election in. In mid-September, after candidates have been confirmed, we will advertise where the voting locations are. And another thing that we would like to note is that we offer mail ballot voting for electoral area director and school district trustee. So if one can't make one of the in-person voting opportunities, and again, all of that information can be found on our website. After the election, so the ACRD will have its first inaugural board meeting on November 12th. We also have a very comprehensive orientation plan, and that will be beginning in November with 2 dates, and then December with another date. So that's the training for School District Board of Education Trustees. Their inaugural meeting will be November 3rd, and the trustee onboarding and orientation will be from November onwards. And again, here is our contact information, and if there are any questions that can't be answered today, we can be reached through elections@acrd.bc.ca. And again, just want to refer to our website. Thanks. Sorry, I should introduce Terry as well, who will now go over a bit of the school district information.
Perfect. We will keep this nice and brief. We just have one slide. So my name is Terry Fong, and I am the Secretary Treasurer with Pacific Rim School District, formerly the Chief Financial Officer of the Regional District, if you are confused by me standing here. So I think Cynthia has kind of covered the time commitment of the trustee as well as kind of the dates that are upcoming. But it is a very important role in public education, and we find that the local government elections tend to overshadow the trustee and school board election. So if you are here interested in the trustee election, fantastic. If you are not, if you could continue to spread the word that the trustee election is occurring at the same time, it'd be really appreciative, as it is like the trustees are a very pivotal role in our public education, and we have about 3,800 students in our district and a budget of approximately 70 million. So very important to have good voices at the table. I will just say you do not need to be an educator to be a trustee. I feel like there is a little bit of a common misconception of that. The boards benefit from people with different backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives. We have built, because we don't feel like there's as much information out there, the manager of corporate services for us has built a candidate information guide. I brought 3 copies of it, but it's also on our website. Kind of goes over some of the highlights of what our region is, but also how we operate and some of the governance type rules. I did bring 3 copies with me, but if you go to our website, it's on our front page. So please encourage yourself or others to go there. And again, I will be here for a few minutes after if you would like to talk about things that are slightly different. A lot of the governance stuff that Allison covered previously is somewhat applicable, but slightly different under that school act instead of the local government or community charter. So that is all for me. Thank you. Oh, yes. No, the school board meetings are on Tuesdays in the afternoon, like late afternoon. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, you've made it almost to the end. It's been a lot of information, so appreciate you sitting through all this. I promise I will make it brief. I will tell you the slides I'm going to go through will be posted as everybody else's will. I had 51. I got it down to 12. I'm going to post the whole 51. Thank you. I figured you didn't want to be here till midnight, but it's all really good information and probably questions that you have. So I will post the full presentation, and that's what you'll find online. So I'll start off by introducing myself. Again, I'm Sarah Darling. I'm the Corporate Officer, Director of Corporate Services for the City of Port Alberni. I'm also the Chief Election Officer. We administer the election. That includes receiving nomination documents, overseeing the voting opportunities, declaring the official election results, and providing procedural information to candidates. We do not provide legal advice or campaign finance information. So we've already been over this, I think, quite a bit, but of course, general voting day is Saturday, October 17th. The election will be for 1 mayor, and councillor will be 6 elected. We also will have advanced voting opportunities on Wednesday, October 7th and Wednesday, October 14th, along with general voting day. All of those are offered at Echo Centre, and it will be from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. So you might recall that we previously held general voting day at the Athletic Hall, but all opportunities will be at Echo Centre for this election. Our official election page, this is something else that's new. You typically were used to going to the city's website. You can still go there and you'll find election information, but it will direct you to our Let's Connect page. And that's where all of the information will be for you, including nomination documents, any of our notices, and all of the information going forward. So please check that out. Speaking about our time commitments that we were discussing earlier, I mentioned that council meets generally at 2 p.m. on the second and fourth Monday of each month at 2 p.m. I said 2 p.m. And we also have a committee of the whole meeting that generally takes place at 6 p.m. on the third Monday of each month. And we talked a bit about what those agendas can look like. On the Thursday prior to the Monday meetings, or if we have a public hearing related to land use, an agenda package is provided to council and also posted on the city website, allowing time for council and residents to review the reports before the meeting. We talked a bit about how council meeting and public hearing rules and procedures are set out by the Community Charter and the Local Government Act, and also in Council Procedures Bylaw, which Allison spoke about earlier. Our meeting procedures bylaw is currently also being updated, and it's out for public notice right now, which is a requirement. So when council chooses to change their procedures bylaw, we have a duty under the Community Charter to provide public notice. So that will be coming back to council for final consideration on September 8th, I I believe. So when you're looking on our bylaw, up the bylaw, if you happen to, right now it will be the current version, but potentially an outdated version if council chooses to adopt the new bylaw. And again, if you visit the city's website under your government, all council agendas and minutes from this year and many years prior can be found there if you want to do some extra reading to find out what happens at these meetings. In addition to that, as was mentioned as well, we do have committees and commissions that council is appointed to for the term of council. Presently, we have an advisory traffic committee, we have a board of variance, we have 2 commissions, the Alberni Valley Heritage Commission and Advisory Planning Commission. And as well on our website, you can find more information about those committees. I've listed a number of key dates here. I won't go over them in detail, and I will say that on the Let's Connect official election page, you will find a fulsome key document, key dates document, and it will have all the dates that you need to know. These are just some of the ones that are critical and coming up, such as the nomination period, which opens on September 1st and closes on September 11th. So those of you who have picked up nomination packages, or those of you who are planning to, we have some here this evening if you'd like to take one home with you. And we do strongly suggest that you make an appointment with myself for the city, or Cynthia for the ACRD, to file your nomination documents. This is not a requirement, but it is a suggestion to make sure that everything you have is completed and ready to be filed, so that you don't find yourself at the deadline and it isn't completed, and therefore you can't be nominated as a candidate. There is an opportunity for a withdrawal, and that runs until September 18th. And so following that, we do an order of ballot names drawn. So we meet here in council chambers right after the deadline, and we do order by lot. So we pull out a really fancy hat, and there's a whole story, and we'll tell you all about it, and everyone's name goes in it, and how we pull it out is how you find yourself in the order of the ballot. I already mentioned the advance voting days and general voting day. October 19th is the declaration of official results, and then it just talks about October 21st being the time that election signs need to be removed. Again, we have a 2-page key date document on Let's Connect, so please go there to see more detail. Voting results, we do close at 8 p.m. on general voting day. We do use tabulators, and so we have preliminary election results that we announce, unofficial results, following the close of voting, and those will be posted to the city website. And then October 19th is the date that we provide the determination and declaration of official election results at City Hall, and we will confirm the time of that. Moving on to some information about candidates. So the term of office, October 27th, is the first day that a candidate can take the oath of office that Allison showed you earlier, with December 5th being the last day. For the City of Port Alberni, we will be having our inaugural meeting at 7 p.m. on November 9th, at which time you'll swear your oath, and we'll also work through the appointments and other things that need to be taken care of. The nomination procedure that I spoke about earlier, the documents are available here at City Hall anytime. They're also available if you'd like to print them out yourself on Let's Connect. We have them available for you tonight as well. A candidate must be nominated by a minimum of 10 people qualified to vote in the general election. There is no nomination fee, and completed documents are to be filed with myself or a deputy during the nomination period. Mm-hmm. No, no. Correct, yeah, it's just a minimum. You can't have any less than 10, yeah. All candidates meeting, I know Graham was here, but I think he's gone. So an all candidates meeting is something that is hosted usually by an organization in the community. Historically, it has been the Alberni Valley Chamber, but this year the Scoop, who is the media outlet in the community, has offered to host that for the city, not for the ACRD or the school district. Those meeting dates are going to be determined soon. The city is not affiliated with the All Candidates meeting. It's a separate meeting that's held by the organization who decides to host that. But we always do provide the information for dates and times. So as soon as those become available, we'll let you know. Moving on to a quick piece about voter eligibility. I won't get into this too much, but obviously there's eligibility for our residents, and that is 18 years of age. You have to be a BC resident for 6 months before registering to vote, a resident of the city of Port Alberni, and not disqualified by law. And then we also have an opportunity for non-residents, and so those have some different stipulations. All of what I had already mentioned, but also owned property in the city of Port Alberni for at least 30 days prior to registering to vote. And there's a few different pieces to that that non-residents are required to fill out. I will just note, because sometimes people find this surprising, we use the provincial voters list for our elections, and people are able to register with Elections BC up until August 18th. If you do so, you'll be on the formal list. That doesn't mean you can't register on the day of voting. You can come in with your 2 pieces of ID and register. If you are on the provincial's voters list, you do not need to show a piece of identification to vote. And I think that's a wrap. I feel like I got through that really quickly. And right on time, it's 8 o'clock. So again, thank you all so much for coming. As I mentioned, we're gonna stop the recording now so that we're able to post it, but we will hang around for some Q&A, or if you wanna pick up some nomination documents. So again, oh, go ahead, Charlene. Of course. You can go ahead and answer on your mic.
Yes, that is correct.
And I'll just add to that, similarly, for City of Port Alberni Council, you do not need to live in the city to run for council. Yeah.
So just 2 very quick things. So we do not use the provincial's voters list. We do same-day voters registration, so that's available on the website. And another question that came up is, can somebody run as an electoral area director as well as as a trustee? And the answer is yes. Of course, you would just need to make sure that you meet the eligibility requirements and, of course, be mindful of time commitments.
Okay, if there isn't any hot burning points of clarification, we'll hang out, and if you have any questions, feel free to come on up. And again, if you go home tonight and you actually all have all this information in your head and you have 10 million questions tomorrow, our information is on the website. If you've picked up nomination packages, it's in there as well, so please don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help you through the process, and thank you again for coming tonight.